Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to dive into John chapter 3.
Oh, cool.
We got some excerpts from a Dr. Roy E. Richmond,
Okay.
and he's got this metaphysical take on it. So,
Interesting.
yeah, it really gets into spiritual consciousness and what it means to access that kingdom within.
I love that phrase, kingdom within. It reminds me, you know how Dr. Richmond talks about earthly versus heavenly?
Right.
It's like he's using those terms, but not to talk about actual places.
Yeah, it's more about a state of being almost.
Exactly. Like your state of awareness is what makes it earthly or heavenly.
So instead of heaven being this far off place, he's saying it's more of an internal state, something we can tap into right now.
Yes. And he connects that directly to how Jesus describes heaven. Like, remember that part where Jesus talks about the kingdom being within?
Yeah.
Dr. Richmond really latches onto that. He's like, this isn't about harps and clouds.
Right.
It's about accessing this, and this is a quote, conscious sphere of our divine mind.
Whoa. Okay, so we've got kingdom within and conscious sphere of our divine mind.
Right.
It's like we have this wellspring of peace and wisdom inside of us, but we've totally forgotten how to get to it.
It's like, yeah, we're walking around with this hidden treasure, totally clueless.
Totally.
And that actually brings up another point Dr. Richmond makes about, what it really means to receive Jesus' testimony, back in John 3.32.
Okay.
He says it's not just about hearing the words.
It's got to be more than that, right?
Exactly. It's like, think about the difference between reading a recipe and actually cooking a meal. You can have all the information, but actually doing something with it, that's what creates something real.
I like that. So it's less about passively listening and more about internalizing the message, letting it actually change us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And to describe this, Dr. Richmond uses this incredibly powerful image. He says it's like setting our seal to it.
Ooh,
Go ahead.
setting our seat. That's a powerful image. It's like this sense of ownership, making it a part of who you are.
It's about going beyond just knowing something in your head and actually integrating it into your very being.
Which honestly makes you think, how often do we hear these amazing, inspiring ideas, but then we just let them go?
Oh, all the time, right?
We don't actually do the work to let them sink in and change us. We have those aha moments and then nothing.
We move on to the next thing.
But this idea of internal transformation, it makes me think about another thing Dr. Richmond talks about, the sun principle.
Yeah, the sun principle. This is where things get really interesting.
Yeah, tell me more about that.
So he's suggesting that Jesus, he wasn't like the only son, right?
Okay.
But that he embodied this principle, this creative spiritual power,
Okay.
and that it's something that's within all of us.
So instead of worshiping Jesus as this one exception, we should be trying to awaken that sun within ourselves.
Yes, exactly. And he ties that to everlasting life too.
Oh, how so?
So he connects this sun principle, this connection to our divine mind, with experiencing what he calls Zoe life.
Zoe life.
Yeah, it's this Greek term that means a life of abundance and purpose, lived right here and now, not in some, afterlife.
So instead of waiting for some heavenly reward later, we can access that richness and fulfillment now by tapping into the sun principle.
Exactly. It's about realizing that we're not just these helpless beings waiting for, salvation.
Right.
But that we are active participants in our own spiritual growth or evolution.
I like that.
And that we have this wellspring of what he calls logos within us.
Logos. Okay, you're throwing a lot of terms at me. I'm trying to keep up.
Sorry, logos. Basically, think of it as this creative spiritual energy.
Okay.
That when we can access it, it lets us experience the fullness of that Zoe life.
I mean, this is really resonating with me because it's it does feel like we've been handed all the tools, all this power, but somewhere along the way, we forgot how to use them.
Yeah, we've lost the instruction manual.
Exactly. We get so caught up in our to-do lists and just the daily grind, the earthly stuff that we forget about, cultivating that heavenly potential inside.
Absolutely. And that's why he emphasizes belief so much.
Belief. Okay.
He's saying that it's by consciously choosing to align with our divine nature, with that sun principle, that we can actually unlock this Zoe life.
He doesn't really shy away from the opposite of that either, does he?
No, not really.
What happens if we ignore this whole sun principle thing?
He's pretty clear that you won't experience Zoe life in the same way,
Right.
But it's not about punishment or being excluded.
Right.
He makes it clear that the Father's love is constant. It's always there, regardless of our choices.
It's kind of comforting in a way, right? To
Yeah.
know that even when we mess up, that love is a constant.
Absolutely, like a safety net.
Yes. Okay, love that. The love safety net. Okay, the love safety net. I like that. But you said stumbling. Like,
Yeah.
accessing the Zoe life isn't always easy, right?
Yeah, it's not a walk in the park or anything.
Right.
It takes effort,
Mhm.
and a willingness to like really look inside yourself.
Yeah, to confront the things that are holding us back, maybe.
Exactly. All that stuff that keeps us stuck in the earthly.
So it's not this passive thing, just like wishing for a better life,
No.
but an active journey
Yes.
of like self-discovery.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about like recognizing that divine spark within,
Not in an ego way, but just like we're all connected.
right, connected to that source. In fact, he even uses the word immortality at one point.
Immortality. Whoa, okay, that's a big word. What do you think he means by that? Like, obviously we're not going to live forever in these bodies.
Right, right. No, not in these bodies. He's talking about that part of us that's eternal, the spiritual being,
That makes sense.
like tapping into that part of ourselves that goes beyond time and space.
It's less about outliving our bodies and more about like recognizing that eternal aspect of ourselves.
Exactly. And that it's that awareness, that connection that lets us experience true Zoe life.
Wow. It really makes you wonder how much we limit ourselves.
Oh, absolutely.
Getting all caught up in the day-to-day, our worries, our fears, all that earthly stuff.
Right, all that noise.
What if by really embracing that sun principle inside us,
Yeah.
what if that could unlock a whole new way of living, of experiencing the world?
And it's not just a different way of experiencing, but Dr. Richmond seems to argue that it actually brings like joy, fulfillment, real purpose.
It's like he's saying, we have all the ingredients, the power
Yeah.
already within us.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to remember how to use them.
Yes.
Well, this deep dive has given us a lot to think about.
For sure.
It makes you stop and wonder what would change if we all actually lived with that awareness of the kingdom within.
Right. And tapped into that sun principle today.
It's about looking inward instead of waiting for something outside ourselves.
Exactly. Finding that wellspring of wisdom, peace, and creative power that's already there. That's our birthright, as he says.
Wow, so much to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this journey into John, chapter 3.